Vandeham Sri Guru.
Rose, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
You're friends with Amina?
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us. Generally, we do 10 minutes of meditation, then we jump into the topic. So today's topic is law of karma. So, before getting into the law of karma, I just wanted to do a little bit of review of what we've done before to give it more context. So we talked in the first few classes about who we are, the eternal unchanging self, the soul, spiritual being. It's not just the body because, at one point of time, we were that little child. We grew up, so we have had different bodies, even in this life. So we'll talk about that in terms of karma and reincarnation. But we have changed over time physically, mentally. But the sense of identity, who we are, I am, I exist, that has been the same. So it's the eternal unchanging self. And according to the Vedic understanding, there are three characteristics. The soul is eternal, it never dies, is never born. It's cognizant, which means it's conscious. And it's blissful, it's full of happiness. That's the natural state of the soul. And naturally, all of us are constantly endeavoring to pursue happiness in everything we do. We are in college trying to get a good degree so we can get a nice job, money, whatnot. So we are looking for happiness. That's just natural. But in our pursuit for happiness, there are a few things that inhibit those things. One of them being death. Death of, our fear of death for ourselves, fear of death for our near and dear ones, dogs, whatever, close to us. Old age. All of us are going to grow old someday, right? And with old age comes limited senses, limited hearing, limited capability to enjoy life or pursue happiness. Even going to the bathroom becomes difficult. Disease. From birth till old age, we have diseases, some more severe than others. But nevertheless, it happens to all of us. The definition of a problem that was given by Nityananda Prabhu was, does anybody remember?
Common to everybody.
Right.
Nobody wants it.
Right.
You
This-
cannot avoid it.
Right. So it's common to all. Nobody wants it, but nobody can avoid it. Because sometimes, one man's nectar is another man's poison. Something might be nice for me, but not so nice for you. Hi. Thank you for joining again. So, but there are certain problems in life that are universal to everybody. And so, death, old age, disease being one of them. Birth. So one might say, what's wrong with birth? Well, that's where it all begins. And by the way, babies don't come out laughing out of the mother's womb. So it's a very painful process, going through the tract, and coming out, tearing off the umbilical cord, etc. It's a very, very painful process. So we all go through that. And as long as we have a material body, we will have to go through birth, death, old age, and disease. And we all know this. We see this every day. Just like that goat. There is the butcher right there, and there are his friends hanging from the hook. But the goat is enjoying the grass. Like, oh, this is nice. This is what life should be. But his friends are up there. So we are sometimes like that. When we just go through life without questioning it, without caring for what's going to happen 10 years from now. We're just focused on now. I want my gratification now. And I have heard actually when I was in college, I used to live in the dorms. And one time I remember some guys were going to the bathroom saying, man, I don't think I could ever grow old or die. I don't think it's going to happen to me. And then it made sense because I'd heard it in Vedic Vision Society classes that people think like that, but I never met anybody like that. But then I saw that guy, I was like, wow, people actually think that. And that's the illusion. We're constantly under the impression it's never going to happen to me. And that's why in the Vedas, there's a very strong statement in the Vedanta Sutra. It's a wake-up call. Athata Brahma Jigyasa. Now that you have a human form of life, ask questions. Inquire into the absolute. Because we can ask questions, a plant cannot. An animal might not be able to ask questions, why is there suffering in life? But we can. So this human form of life is very, very important. And as Srimad Bhagavatam also says, a human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth. Unless we inquire, what's the difference between us and animals? So this is very, very important. And all of you are here, you guys are very, very special. And realize it's very rare also for people to actually ask these questions. Even more rare for people to actually find the answers. Rarer than that is actually finding the answer and applying it in our lives. So those of us that are here, some of us are pursuing spiritual life very, very seriously. Some of us are just beginners. So anyway, you're very, very special personalities because you're questioning life. And that is what human life is meant for. So today in karma theory, we'll be dealing with certain questions related to fairness. Prince Harry and Prince William were born to Princess Diana in the Buckingham Palace. The royal family, born privilege. Prince William is said to be the King of England, maybe years from now, but nevertheless. On the other side, these two kids, maybe the same age, born in India, child labor, carrying bricks on their head. Why this difference? Why is somebody born in absolute wealth and somebody born to poverty and exploitation? Hitler, one man responsible for the death of millions of people. I'm sure he had an entourage of people who were responsible too. I'm not saying he was the only one, but he was responsible. He was the leader for death of so many people. And the person dies. He gets one death, commits suicide. Is that fair? Does it make sense? So much torture. These people just didn't die. They went through years of torture and pain and suffering and humiliation. And Hitler just dies like that. Enjoys a whole life of privilege and power. Doesn't sound very fair. So, one might think it begins at birth and ends at death. Not necessarily true. Not a right idea. The Vedic perspective is, it's an infinite change of bodies, one lifetime to another. You can see the human beings, person dying and then being born. Then there are the other animals and living entities and aquatics. We talked about in the past lectures about the different life forms and how the Vedas classified them. So we are born in all these categories. Same soul goes through all these transmigrations of bodies according to one's karma. And like I mentioned, we change the soul, transmigrates through multiple bodies in this lifetime itself. In fact, every 7 years, every different cell of the body is replaced. It feels that this is the same body that I had 10 years ago because it's very slow. It's a slow process. But it's a new body. But we are still the same. So that happens in this life. It also happens after death, when the body becomes not inhabitable. Professor Ian Stevenson, he has done research with over 2,000 documented cases of past life remembrance. Not all of us have that gift, but there are some that do. And that's also a particular kind of karma, that they remember their past lives. And especially in this case, this girl, she didn't speak till she was 4 years old. But when she started speaking, she was telling her mother about her husband, the village she was from, her name, her husband's name, intimate details. Her mother didn't take her seriously for 2 years. But then it was getting to the point where she couldn't really ignore it. And so she was taken to the place that she was saying she belonged to. And her husband, who was much older, actually, after hearing everything, he completely believed that that was his wife, reincarnated. And there are thousands of cases like that, documentaries made. So some people do, we don't. There is another process called hypnotic regression, which is applicable to all of us. It's the process of hypnosis through which one is taken, because all these impressions that we have from past lives are in our minds. So with the hypnotic regression process, one is taken back step by step through memories, all the way to the fetal stage, and then back to previous lives. And this is a therapy used for people who have phobia. Like some people are scared of heights, or some people are scared of water. My aunt was scared of matchsticks, and there is no explanation why this phobia has come. But through the hypnotic regression, one might find out that somebody was drowned, so anytime the person sees water, they're scared of it. Or burned by fire, something. Some tragic incident happened that has that impression on the mind. So it's very, very interesting. Last night I was doing the research and I was like, wow, I spent almost an hour watching various things which I shouldn't have. Didn't get enough sleep. So the big picture idea is, so you see those little slots, those are lives, and different lifetimes. We have some small, some big, and that's a graphical representation of every moment we're acting. And as we're acting, there are reactions. For example, at a particular time, place, and circumstance, I might be faced with a certain scenario. And that's because of a certain action that is the fruit of certain action, the reaction of certain action that I'm facing now, like being born in the palace. We act in a certain way in that particular place because we have free will. And as we utilize our free will, there are reactions. Some reaction might be immediate, some might be a week from now, some might be a lifetime later. For example, let's say in that dot area, somebody lied on their resume and got a job. And maybe 3 months from there, that person gets fired. Guess what? He's not actually qualified. But maybe a lifetime later, that person gets cheated. He's now an employer and he's hiring somebody, and somebody does the same thing to him. It happened to me. In my company, we hired somebody, and this girl just quit like that, and it was a lot of valuable resources wasted. So that's just a very simplified example of what would happen, but that karma is not simple. There's so many variables that are acting at the same time. So just to elaborate the process, something could happen lifetimes later. So for those of you from Indian background, the story of Mahabharata, when the Kauravas were completely killed, Dhritarashtra asked Krishna, why this? Why did this happen to me? And then Krishna responded that 50 lifetimes back, you were a hunter. And there was a nest of birds, a bird family, and you burned down the whole tree, and the bird family died. So 50 lifetimes later, you're getting that reaction. And he said, why 50 lifetimes? It's like, because you had to gain the piety, the good credit, to have so many sons. Because to have children, you need good credit. To have so many sons, and then now that you have it, your whole family, not family, but all your children are killed in the battle of Kurukshetra. So that's an example of something happening, because good or bad karma, we'll talk more about that, neither are really good. So with this pursuit of happiness, the whole point is gratifying our senses. And so the five senses are connected to looking for sense objects to enjoy. So we like to hear nice music, we like to see nice things, we like to taste nice food. So like that, the senses are constantly looking for sense objects to gratify. But it's temporary. It's constantly changing. I like the iPhone 4. Oh, iPhone 5 just came out. I want that. So we're never satisfied. It's constantly a moving target. And every time we think, if I reach that goal, I'll be happy. And if even we reach the goal changes. next goal. So like that, we're constantly running after the carrot of life. And likewise, we decide our career, our relationships, money, what will gratify my senses the best, and accordingly I'll choose what I want to do. For example, many of you are PhD students. Not everybody can say that they are PhD just because they want to learn the subject matter and attain the perfection of that, whatever engineering or chemistry or whatever you're doing. It might be whichever degree or whichever major gets me the best money, has the best jobs, has the most potential. And that's not wrong, it's just that's how we think. We are always seeking for a sense of satisfaction. It's natural because the soul is full of happiness. But the mind and the five senses, that's the covering. It's called the subtle body, for those who remember the second lecture, who am I? And the subtle body and the senses, they decide what action. So, for example, the subtle action would be, and I think I mentioned this before, I see an ice cream, shop, and I was like, okay, I remember that taste of ice cream, I really liked it. I would like to have it. Mind thinks, feels, and then wills. Thinking, feeling, willing. And that becomes gross action. So take your body, move your limbs, go to the ice cream shop, take out your credit card, pay for it, buy the ice cream, and enjoy it. Very nice. And with that comes reaction. Because, as we heard, every action has a reaction. And it's very, very hard to define what particular reaction you get from something. But let's say with the ice cream, the milk was made from a cow that was, tortured, and you're paying for it, so you're pretty much paying for that activity. And so you get part of that karma. Or you're ingesting a bunch of bacteria, or an ant maybe goes into your mouth. That entity is killed. So that karma. So I'm just giving very, very simple example. It's not so easy, it's not that straightforward. There's a lot of variables that act on it. But every action has a reaction. And that's called karma. Karma means activity or action. So the soul is pure by nature and is conscious. But it's covered by a material body, which is dull and dead. Does anybody want to explain why the body is dull and dead? Go ahead.
Oh, no, I thought you were explain.
Somebody wants to talk? Yeah. Go ahead.
I like the analogy that Nidyanam used last week when he said that he asked the question about the transport, and does the soul transport the body, does the body transport the soul? And he talked about a person being in a car doesn't drive itself. There's someone in there that drives the car. So if you remove the soul from the body, then you have just a mass of cells that can't move on their own. You have to have something that drives it.
Right. And so when a person, yeah.
Right, then is the soul like something with spatial dimensions?
No, it's not material.
So then it's not locatable in physical space.
That's right. At the same time, it is locatable, but it's in a different realm, different dimension. We're used to the 3 dimension. It's on a different dimension. To keep it simple. So this combination of matter and spirit is called the conditioned state, which we are in. So the soul sees through the lenses of the mind because it's covered, it's conditioned, it's covered by the subtle layers. So let's say my identity is I'm a man. Automatically I'll look for other women, or from a man's perspective, I like football, or I like whatever. Rich. Okay, so a rich person's perspective, whatever that might be. I like Giorgio Armani, or wise. I think I know. I don't need advice. For example. So as we think, as the I statement is, as we think who we are, accordingly we see the world around us. We talked about this in the Modes of Nature lecture. So the filters of the mind make us see things that might or might not be as it is. Rather, it's what our preconceived notions of things are. And as we see things according to the modes of nature and the coverings, filters on the mind, we act and receive reaction. And it's a perpetual cycle of action and reaction. So what happens when our actions that are, let's say, the state law, we break the state law, in our rear view mirror we see a police car following us and we get a ticket, right? So it's natural, just like our state has a law, our country has a law, the United Nations have laws, the universe has laws. There's law of gravity, there's law of, the planets are moving in a perfect order, perfect velocity. So there is law guiding everything. E is equal to mc squared, for example. Perfectly works out, right? So there are higher laws, and one who breaks that law, even if one is following the national or state law, if one is breaking those higher laws, they get reaction for that. So these are the four principles of dharma, or religion. Cleanliness, mercy, truthfulness, and tolerance. And we can have a whole lecture just on that to expand on it. But in simple terms, cleanliness of internal and external. We all know cleanliness is next to godliness. Right? It's simple. But at the same time, cleanliness of thoughts. There are all kinds of things that come here that we censor out when we are speaking. Mercy. One might say, oh, I love to do charity, but one might be eating meat. So you're charitable to some, but to others, you don't mind taking their lives for 5 minutes pleasure of your tongue. That's not mercy. So this is all in the absolute sense. Truthfulness. White lies, blue lies, yellow lies. We all know what that means. But truthfulness in the true sense, in the absolute sense. Tolerance. It's not just coexist. I put a sticker on my car. Okay, I'm religious tolerant, and I feel good about myself. Tolerant of diversity, living in harmony with nature. Trees have the right to exist. Animals have the right to exist. Squirrels and birds have the right to exist. Being tolerant of everything else around us, being tolerant of other living entities, being respectful to others. So these principles, and like I said, it can be a whole class just talking about each one in details. Nityananda Prabhu actually did that. Each one was a whole lecture. So you can imagine how deep these subject matters are. But point is, those are the four principles on which religion stands, and if one who breaks those, get a reaction. For example, our picture you saw on the flyer. Somebody who in this life might be killing a cow, in past life might have been killed as a cow. So you come back, action, reaction. It's a pretty terrifying picture. And according to Vedic classification, there are 8.4 million species of life. And according to our aspirations, desires, and karmic credits, we are born in any of those. Particularly important, the human species, there are 400,000 kinds. If you really count, we might find racially or countrywide, we might find 100, but 400,000, because it includes other entities in the universe that might not be residing in the Earth's planet. There are higher universal controllers. There are lower planets. So the Vedic scriptures describe the universe. And a lot of it, let me put it this way. For example, distance between planets or circumference. Modern science has found them to be very, very close to what the Vedic scriptures talk about. But those were 5,000 years ago, before Galileo even existed. And modern science is right now looking for life on Mars or Moon or other places where the scriptures already talk about it in details. So this is the Vedic classification. It might not meet the biological classification from modern science, but this is how it is. And according to our karma, we take birth in whatever, any of those situations. So for example, I'll take the example of a tiger. Somebody likes to eat a lot of meat. This human form is not the best form to enjoy meat eating. Whereas a tiger's body, you have nice, big teeth, you have a small digestive tract, acidic, so it can very quickly digest meat and throw it out. So according to your desire, you're awarded a certain kind of body where you can enjoy that desire. Or sleep. Some people might like to, especially college students, I used to be like that one time, 12 hours, 14 hours. and a bare body, you can sleep for 6 months. It's a better place to be if that's where your consciousness is, that's where your aspiration is. So like that, according to our aspiration, according to our desire, according to our karma, we are awarded certain kinds of bodies. So one might say, I do charity, I do good karma, I help others. Is good karma good? Well, with good karma, the reactions are nice, one might say. Good looks, beauty, fame, wealth, intelligence, high birth, in a nice family. I used to be like that, proud of my birth, I have some, strength. So one might be very, very proud of one's possessions. And guess what? That's very, very binding to the material nature because it is attachment. It is very, very binding because, for example, there is an iron chain. Somebody with a good karma might have a gold chain, but it's still a chain. Somebody with not so good karma might have an iron chain or silver chain. But anywhere you are in the material existence, as we have spoken about the absolute existence and the material existence, in the material world, it's all shackles because we are tied down to taking birth over and over and over again. So with the human form, one with the right kind of karma can take birth in a human form as a man or a woman. There's a funny story. I don't know if Prabhuji mentioned it in this class, but India and Pakistan is known to hate each other. And they constantly fight over the borders. And so this man who was fighting on the border, he's a Punjabi, and while killing the Pakistani soldiers, he's like, I hate you, Pakistan! And he takes birth. He gets shot and he dies, and his next birth he's part of the Pakistani soldier. And he's fighting on the other side and he's killing people. And I hate you, India! So like that he keeps taking birth on the opposite sides. So like that, we can, according to our karmic credits, we can be born as humans. Or we can take birth in the lower species, a bird, a plant, according to our desires. Or higher beings, the controllers, the universal controllers. But karma is accrued only in the human form. So let's say you have a lot of good karmic credit, and you're born in the higher planetary systems and have a longer lifespan, very beautiful, very enjoyable. It's all nice, but it ends, it's very temporary. So you come back to the human form of life, where again you start from zero. You accrue karma, and then it again decides whether you're going to go down or up. Same with the lower species. A tiger does not get implicated for killing a deer. Because the tiger, if not hungry, will not kill a deer. They're working on their instinct, if I may call it. But we make a choice. We have free will. We have the choice to go this way or that way. So with that also comes the responsibility. Because we have free will, because we have volition, the responsibility is we are given, awarded or punished according to what we do, how we act. And the point is whether we want... Yeah, go ahead.
Just a question regarding the lower species.
Sure.
Within the lower species, are there classifications
Yeah.
as well?
I just gave you the 8.4 million.
No, what I mean is, such as how you say that if one in a human form acquires a lot of bad karmic credit, then they'll go into the lower species, right? So is there a similar hierarchy inside within the lower species?
Yes. Yes. So whether one is in the higher or the lower or in the human form, one is afflicted by birth, death, old age, disease, temporary life, temporary happiness, lots of suffering, and the problems that we talked about. But there is a realm that is spiritual, and with the process of yoga, we are transported to the spiritual realm, where we are in our natural state of being eternal, cognizant, and blissful.
Is there any limit of transformation from one form to another?
Can you expand on that?
I mean to say, a limit where a soul is free of everything. He doesn't migrate to any other body or anything else.
Yes, that is this.
Okay.
It all stops. The cycle of birth, death, old
Yeah.
age, disease stops. Once one is in the process of yoga and is transferred. So again, the Bhagavatam quote, the rare human form of life, which altogether temporary, affords one the opportunity to attain the highest perfection. Because only in this human form we have this opportunity to get out of this repeated birth, death situation and get situated where we belong. Sanskrit word is Vaikuntha, of spiritual kingdom. So there are three kinds of karma. One is called vikarma, which is pretty much doing whatever I want to do. I don't care. So for example, let's say one doesn't have a driver's license and is driving in Chicago and breaks the law. Police is going to come and give you a ticket. Now the person might say, oh, I didn't know that was the law. That doesn't stop the police from giving you a ticket just because you didn't know the law, because it's our responsibility to find out what that law is. So like that, a lot of people who are very innocent might be doing a lot of things, but it's our responsibility to question life and find out what life is about, what it means to live in such a way that we least inconvenience other living entities around us, cause the least amount of damage. Right now we're at our max, cutting down trees, forests, mountains, people, war. That's in the vikarma category. Karma, living in harmony with laws of nature. And how do we know about the laws of nature? The Vedas provide that. What it means to have a minimum, like they say, minimum carbon footprint. Like that. We do exactly as much we require to sustain ourselves. And in that process, there is actually a lot more happiness than the vikarma process. And then there's akarma, prescribed God-centered activities, which is karma-free. Nityananda Prabhu talked about this last class. Connecting our activities in a God-centering manner, which is prescribed by higher authority, Vedic scriptures or a spiritual master, guru. So that is our goal. That is what we're trying to achieve. Because as soon as there is no karma, that means no more taking bodies. Now that doesn't mean we become inactive, desireless, go to the Himalayas and that's it, renounce from life. That's not what it's about. It is about working in the mood who I am working for. For example, if a politician, let's say, were to make decisions based on what is good for the people, that would be a different decision than what is going to be the most popular idea, that if I vote for this, people will re-elect me. Two different ideas, right? One is very selfishly motivated, the other one is for a higher purpose. If I have a clear idea of who the source of everything is, who the proprietor of everything is, and I connect everything back to that, then I'm living in a life that is grateful, happy, respectful to others and the source, and I'm not stealing, because otherwise we're just here plundering and looting whatever. This is mine because I cut this tree belongs to me. Where did that tree get its nutrients from? Where did this house come from? Well, I built it, so it's mine. And again, Prabhuji gives the example, when a bank teller counts money, he doesn't think it's my money, it's the bank's money. And he uses it accordingly, gives it to the customers or whatever. So having the change of consciousness, not change of so much of activity, but change of consciousness. Now one might say, oh, I can gamble or support certain kind of crime and make it God-centered. That's my consciousness. It doesn't work. That's why the word prescribed is given. Because when we are dutiful, duty comes from higher authority. That's important to understand. So there has to be an absolute standard. Because relative standards change. Constitutions of countries change. What used to be bad in the 1960s, for example, there was a research done that what would a student have to do to get kicked out of school. In the 60s, it was chewing gum, talking back at the teacher, being rude with other students, like saying swear. I forget exact details, but it was not, today's standard one, it looks it's simple. Current day, to be kicked out of school, you have to carry a knife to school, or a gun, or something pretty up there. So the point is, over the time, the standards have changed. But the Vedic standards, 5,000 years ago, Bhagavad Gita, today, is the same. And they're very, very relevant and applicable. Because they're universal, they're absolute. They apply to all of us, any conscious living being. So, I'll end with this story of the Chinese farmer. So there was this Chinese farmer who had a horse and a son, and they lived very simply. And one day the horse ran away, and all the villagers came and said, "Oh, how unfortunate! Your horse ran away." The farmer was like, "Good fortune, bad fortune, who knows?" Then 3 weeks later, the horse came back with a mare. The farmer, all the farmer community, they came like, "Wow, you are so fortunate, you have 2 horses now. Good fortune, bad fortune, who knows?" And then with the new horse, he told his son to train the new horse. So as he was training the new horse was very, rebellious and kicked the son off the back. And the son broke his leg. Farmers came up, said, "Oh, how unfortunate, your son's leg is broken." And he said, "Good fortune, bad fortune, who knows?" And then, as the son was trying to recover, there was a war. And the king asked for all the citizens with children, who are able, not children, but like young men who are able and fit to join the military. Everybody was crying, "Oh, my son, oh, my son." And this farmer, his son had a broken leg, so the king didn't recruit him. And they were like, "Oh, you're so fortunate, your son got saved, and our son is going to, they're going to fight in the war. Good fortune, bad fortune, who knows?" So karma is like that. Things might be happening, we don't know for what. What happened in the past, what happened in the future. Good fortune, bad fortune, who knows? But we can at least have an appreciation of what is happening. And we have the choice to act, knowing how to act out our lives, how to live our lives. Okay, so that's it. Open up for questions. Yeah, Amina.
So I think that maybe we can all agree that as a whole, we're all kind of like, as like a population, we're kind of biting the hand that feeds us in terms of how we're destroying Earth. And I feel like that there's got to be some type of shift that happens, or something. Is there a Vedic like time limit that inevitably we're going to run out of resources. So is there a certain point in time that it stops, like the karma stops?
Karma doesn't stop, but time, maybe I can speak about, or probably you can speak about time the next week. But in Vedas, they talk about time in very, very vivid details. So the time period we live in right now It's called Kali Yuga. So their yuga means it's a period of time. This is the worst time to be, unfortunately. So there's a golden period called Sattva Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, and Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga is supposed to last for 432,000 years. And we have only passed 5,500 and something years. So long more to go. So, and it's also described how it's going to happen. Krishna probably remembers the whole list of things, right? But there's a whole list of things that says, how people will perceive things, what kind of government, what kind of leadership, what kind of taxation, what will happen, overall. And we are seeing that already, and it's just going to it's not going to get better as time progresses. But after the 430,000 years, there's again the cyclic order, the golden period, Sattva Yuga, when things are very, very in the mode of goodness, modes of nature. So there'll be wars, and we'll run out of resources, and we'll fight more. But we have a choice still to cut out of that system.
Can we ask another question? So why do we have to wait those many more years?
We don't.
Oh, okay. So that time can be now. The change.
It can be now. For us.
Right. That's what I don't
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
It can be now.
That's the whole point of meditating and following a yogic lifestyle. Is whatever we are doing in the akarma category of things. So we don't incur karma. It's the time of death. It's over. It's done. It's a happy experience, not a scary experience. Yes.
So does it mean that there's like a certain independence that a soul has in terms of time? So if right now we're in the 5,000 year of the Kali Yuga, then let's say some person meditates enough to reach a higher, I don't know the terminology, but be in a better position in terms of his soul. Will he basically skip time, kind of? Means is time binding in that sense, or is the soul kind of independent of time?
We have free will. We have independence. Yes.
In relation?
Just because the time 430,000 years of Kali Yuga is going to be there, we don't have to be there. We don't have to go through the 8.4 million lifetimes. We don't have to. 99% of us will. But we have a choice to break through it in this life. Or maybe a couple of lives if you're not too serious. But we have that option. And that's the whole process. That's the bhakti process. Is connecting back to the Supreme in loving relationship and bringing out our real self of eternal cognizance. We're not supposed to die. That's why death is such a fear. It's not natural. Because we have a body, and matter by nature is opposite of spirit. It's not eternal. It's temporary. It's not cognizant. It's dull. It's not happy. It's boring. That's not Sanskrit, but it's my way of saying it. So, because we have a material body, it has to die. But the soul lives on. And it doesn't have to take another body. The point is to go back where we came from. We have been in this situation for time immemorial. Time actually exists, Amina, in the material world. But that dimension doesn't exist in the spiritual world. So you're perpetually, it's a dimension we cannot comprehend in our minds, but time doesn't exist there. So time factor is what brings forth karma. You saw that graph, right? So that's what time does to us.
So you told subtle body is responsible for karma and karmic reactions. Is that correct? Our subtle body is responsible for our karma.
We are responsible for our karma.
It means is our subtle body.
The choices we make, mind and intelligence and ego,
So that's subtle body.
that is subtle body, but the gross body is also acting.
Yeah, based on the subtle body's choice, our gross body is just acting on that.
It's not an automatic process. Because understand this, one who is on a spiritual path, they also have minds. And the mind might say, I want to enjoy that or this. The intelligence says, there is something better or something out there. Or maybe you shouldn't do this. So it can be stopped at the subtle level. And thankfully, we don't get karma for our subtle activities. We don't get karma for thinking something. Sometimes when we get angry, we're like, I'm going to kill you. That doesn't incur karma. But when we act, that's when it happens. So we should pause and think. That is mode of goodness. To pause and think. Is this me or is it my mind?
Okay, so we have to work out on our gross body for not getting the karmic reaction rather than or we have with what we have to work out. We have to work out with the subtle body or the gross body.
Subtle body. Subtly we stop it. Because things might come up, but we just like censorship in our brain, right? Sometimes we want to say something really terrible, we don't. We stop ourselves. So like that, as we grow strong spiritually, as our meditation, as we grow in our as devotees, we realize when to hit the pause button. Otherwise, mode of passion is, you hit me, I hit you back. You say something, I say something. Without even thinking, it just comes out. Then we regret, oh my God, I said something so hurtful to my beloved or whatever. I didn't mean to say it, and we apologize. So the subtle platform, it needs to be censored.
So for not getting the karmic reactions.
See, the goal is not about the karmic reaction. The goal is developing a relationship with Krishna and developing a relationship with every other living entity. Seeing them as parts and parcels of God. Does it make sense? So, as a natural outcome, there is no karmic reaction because we're acting on the spiritual platform. But if the goal becomes karmic reaction, then we're constantly calculating, and it's not a happy thing to be. We are all here seeking happiness. Spiritual life provides an alternative to material distress because that's what we're looking for. So if we are looking for every moment, oh, my next step, am I going to get karma for this? It becomes a little difficult. So focus on being Krishna conscious.
So I have heard that in every stage of our life.
I'll get you.
In every means if life, birth and death means in every birth we are carrying the same subtle body with us. So the gross body is only changing and we are carrying the same subtle. Can you just explain on that?
Explain what?
On that concept. Means even though we are changing the gross body, we are carrying the same subtle body throughout our lifetimes. So can you just explain on that concept? Means
To not get karma? Like, I understand that part when you say, explain what based on the subtle body not changing.
yeah, based on how we are carrying the same subtle body in different.
Or how they're carrying?
Yeah, how we are carrying the same subtle body in different species of life.
I don't know how we're carrying it, but that's how it is. The soul is covered by mind, intelligence, and ego. That mind, intelligence, and ego passes on from one body to another. And so with that comes all the conceptions, preconceived notions, certain propensities. Somebody might be a nice musician, somebody might be an artist, somebody might be by nature a business person. As children grow up, their body evolves, their consciousness fructifies. They come to a state of maturity, and then we see all the propensities that they have. Somebody might be a serial killer. So all these conceptions are there, likes and dislikes, modes of nature that they act upon. It's coming from past karmic reactions. And according to the different coverings, we act accordingly. But there is always that sense of inquiry given to the human form of life. Especially at death. I was telling Ed, when I was 5 or 6 years old, my aunt's mother passed away. And as we walked into her house, she held onto my mother and said, why did this happen to my mother? Why did she die? Why does people have to die? She didn't have many answers, she was just petting her at the back. And that's all we could do. But as a child I was thinking, my God, is there any answer to that? Why is there suffering? So death instigates that. That's why there is suffering. So we can question, why is this happening? How can I get out of it? It's not a natural place to be. Now we don't remember our past life activities. And Amina, I know it's kind of You might be thinking, I know you asked one time, why don't we remember our past lives? That's because it would be very difficult. Let's say if I have identity of being an 80-year-old man, of somebody's wife, or somebody's dog, or some bird that I was. All these things, it will be very confusing to live our lives. So it's actually a blessing. For those people, the 2000 categories, it's very difficult for them. They're in a 5-year-old body, talking like a 60-year-old woman, married to a man who's 10 times your age. It's confusing, it's not a nice place to be. So that's why we're given forgetfulness. But those things are there and they can be accessed through the hypnotic regression process. We can talk more. So, yes?
My question is, what do you have to say to people who think that karma is related to only the bad things that happen to them?
Karma is what?
Only bad things that happen to them. Because
Could you-
I've met people that have been talking that karma is, they think that karma is only related to bad things that happen to them. What would you have to say to those people?
We can think. Nobody, doesn't cost money to think. But look at our lives. Can we say that our lives are filled with only bad things? There are good things happening too. Sometimes we get things we don't deserve, apparently. We actually do. That's why we get it. So according to our karma, somebody might be studying very, very hard and not get an A grade. And somebody might just study the night before the exam and get an A. Happened to me many, many times during IIT classes. I would start at 1 a.m. in the morning, 10 a.m. I'd go to class, end up with an A. Anyway, so not bragging about that, but the point is, it's karma. Let's face it. Yeah, it's always karma. Everything happening according to karma. The only time we are not under karma is when we make the choice to skip the material realm, when we're connected to the Supreme and live a God-centered life. Then we're beyond, we're on the absolute platform, not on the relative duality platform, good, bad. Good, bad goes away. There was, hold on, I'm forgetting now. Okay, yeah. Yes.
When we're submitting ourselves to the law of karma, it's a very neutral platform. Like the police officer, regardless of who's in the car that they pulled over, they'll get a ticket. But once we establish or are sincere in that desire to establish a relationship with God, lead a God-centered life, then, maybe the officer can throw the ticket away. Some of the effects get mitigated because we're at least making an endeavor to establish a relationship that's beyond neutral.
Thank you very much. Yes.
How important would you say that diet and nutrition and how you take care of yourself internally in this body that you're in now, with that if you're, for example, if you're living this life where you try and eat foods that are produced ethically and non-processed and fair trade, would that factor into your next life or whatever that you I don't know the terminology, but
Absolutely.
would live say, I don't know, what do you think about that? How important is it to live to eat really well and stuff, basically?
It is important to take care of our bodies. And like I said, at the same time, live responsibly so we're not causing harm to other living entities. So what you're saying, yeah, makes sense. We should do that. But at the same time, whether it's fair trade or organic food, there is still some karma associated with that. So you might get a very nice body next life or this life. Maybe if you eat right, you will look like, you guys are in pretty good shape, right? You eat well. There are other people who might, like me, have a nice belly, like to eat a lot of cheese and butter and sugar. So as you eat, so you get that reaction in this body and next life also, because you're maintaining a responsible lifestyle. So you order accordingly. But you get a body. And a body means death, old age, disease. There is more. There's 3 more problems. Does anybody remember? The 3 kleshas?
Threefold miseries.
Yes.
Eating in the mode of passion.
No. The threefold miseries.
Our own body and mind will
Oh.
create
Right.
Adi klesha, adi
other
bhautika.
living entities. Adivadika. Adibhavika, Adivadika.
Okay. So one is through our own body and mind. So anxiety, stress, disease. The other is other living entities. So bad boss, bad wife, bad husband, bad best friend, whatever. Something else could be bad weather, Chicago weather, too cold, too hot, raining, things that are out of our control. So these things are always there. When we have a body, we're constantly fighting it. Whether you're a squirrel fighting for your nut, or whether you're Bill Gates trying to protect your business empire. But the point is to come to the point of understanding that we should be in a spiritual platform, an eternal platform, where we can be happy consistently and ever expandingly. Not just happiness bursts, then misery, final exams, projects, a little bit of happiness here and there. This is what it does to you. The spiritual platform is supposed to be our natural platform. That's the goal. So it's nice to eat. But what we do, the food that you'll eat in a few minutes, oh my God, that's been offered in the kitchen to God. That way, the plants and the vegetables that have been used in the cooking process are benefited. And we are benefited because it's rid of the karma. It's connecting what it is to back to the source. We can talk more. Yes, before you had your hands raised, yeah.
I forgot my question.
I'm so sorry. Yes, miss.
Wait, so on the spiritual platform, does even subtle body go away?
Yes. But the soul has intelligence. The soul has senses, spiritual intelligence. Soul thinks. Like you said about a relative of yours who was, had the near-death experience, right? That subtle body. But the soul also has volition, form. It's a spiritual form. It's not like 3 millimeters, 10 millimeters. Not in this dimension. I saw more hands raised. Yes.
For example, if all the souls are going in the upper region, which you told, other than the 3 regions, right?
Oh, the spiritual part.
Yeah, spiritual. Then, if any, for example, if any birth happens for any species, then from where the soul will come,
So first of all, it's not going to happen like that.
Yeah, I know that, but
So it's a hypothetical process, hypothetical
how the
question.
soul is coming, I know it is transferring from one form to another, but is there any source of the soul from where it is emerging?
No. Souls have always emerged. Souls have always been in existence.
Okay.
We are part, the source is Krishna. We are part of God, Supreme Soul. But it's not like it's emerging from, it's like a piece of cake coming from a big cake. Not like that. And also, anyway, so on the other side, think of it as a prison in a city. When a city is created, we can start Prashadam, by the way, serving Prashadam. A prison is made, right? Prisons are never empty because there are people who violate laws and they're treated accordingly. There's rectification. So think of it like that. There's constant flow, and very few people actually get to the understanding and take that chance to get out of it.
What I understood from his question was that it was about a finite number of souls against an infinite number of souls.
It's not a finite number.
It's not a finite. Okay.
Anything else?
It will be a finite number that
Fantastic. Thank you so much.